Hello, I'm Joy Whitten. Sorry? Can you hear me? Yep. I'm Joy Whitten, the coordinator of this program, and I'm someone that starts on time. So people coming late, they just have to catch up. So I'm here to talk about the higher education learning and teaching program that started in 2013 to 14. And my name is Joy Whitten and I'm the coordinator of the program. Okay, you may remember that in 2010 education-focused staff appointments were created. The roles were new and our office as well as HR conducted a review about a year and a half later of those roles, which included focus groups. And we found that a number of the people were experiencing isolation, disconnection. They were sometimes the only person in their department or their school. They didn't know anyone else that was education focused. They were a bit unclear about what their new role entailed. So the higher education learning and teaching research program was created and started in 2013. Based on the feedback that we've got, it had three main purposes: to create a community of practice amongst education-focused staff that would cut across faculties, to cut through that kind of isolation, and so that people could actually create what these roles were going to mean for Monash and maximise their impact. Secondly, it was to provide educational support and development in learning and teaching scholarship. Many of these staff are award winners, teaching award winners. Some of them taught huge cohorts. They've chosen to become education focused because that was their love. They're also very good at it, but they were very lacking in knowledge about how to do learning and teaching research. They knew how to do chemistry or marketing or physics, but this was a new discipline. The purpose of the program was to promote excellent teachers and support their ability to evidence the impact of their innovations and effective practices. So it's that evidence base that's underpinned by learning and teaching research that was our fundamental purpose. So we put out a call, and 20 level B and level C academics were selected by application, and they came from quite a gamut of faculties, though not all, because one at least I think at that stage didn't have any education focused staff. They do now. So as you can see, medicine, nursing, health sciences, science, biz eco, IT, arts, engineering. And this is a kind of the structure of the program. It was really in two main parts. There was an education program, which was going to be seminars. Then there was a mentor scheme, and this was based on research. We looked at programs for this kind of thing. There actually was nothing like this anywhere in the world, but we looked at models, and we created the mentor program. It was not a one-to-one mentor program though, it was group mentoring. We matched level D or level D education focused people with a small group of 4 to 5 of these level B and level C education-focused participants, and the idea would be that they would meet in groups throughout the program, which at that stage was earmarked to last for 12 months. But the driver behind it was that it wouldn't just be training and then you go away and you go back to your normal job. They were going to conduct a research project that they would devise themselves, and people decided on a host of things, and 3 people who are going to be talking about their projects today. But they were very broad: visualising chemistry, issues with large cohorts, assessing the impact of flexible online student participation, large team-based learning projects over a long time, and the list could go on and on. Okay, so initially there was a series of seminar programs, and this is the education program I'm talking about. It covered aspects like identifying a research question, research design, accessing resources in learning and teaching, and what the higher education database are and the main journals, locating your research within education research traditions or theory, and a new one for many people who'd come from, say, chemistry or even something like literature doesn't have necessarily, people haven't engaged with human ethics. So learning about what's involved in human ethics, and another responsibility, people were often investigating their own students. So there are issues with researching your own students. And people learned how to apply for ethics approval. There were 3 presenters. I'm not going to go through their details. Alex Radloff ran the main full-day sessions at the start, and Kirsten McLean and Ali McClemens came in and ran short seminars subsequently. Each of us, we're going to have a number of people from the program talking, giving their perspectives, but the outcomes, I'm just going to jump straight to them for now. The benefits are, pleasingly, that people have reported feeling part of an education-focused community, including a learning community, which was one of the main purposes. People have also spoken about having the benefits of protected time, and you all know this because it's exactly the same as it is any kind of research, the time and the legitimacy to conduct your research. However, there have been, we haven't ended up with 20 people. There are 10 actual completions with who've actually completed their research projects. So we've lost people along the way. The challenges, it was a steep learning curve. I think people really realised just how much time and how difficult it is grafting and what is essentially a new discipline onto their existing discipline. And sometimes there are synchronicities, but there is a heck of a lot of, it's a completely new paradigm shift for most people. Time issues. These were the first people to have gone through this program. Their existing workloads were sometimes very high. It was very difficult to meet across campuses. That's going to have an effect on the design of the subsequent mentor programs and how we incentivise and provide enough time for people to actually conduct their research, given their high workloads. And there's a cluster of people who've got, 800 to 1,400 students in there that they're responsible for. It's so that some of these issues are not easy to solve. However, the 10 out of 20, it's actually not as bad as it looks, is what I want to say, because it's interesting where some of the other 10 went. 2, for example, have left to begin their PhDs. One won an OLT seed grant and pursued his research that way. One retired, 4 did leave Monash, but one of them was at what was Ballarat and became the Director of Learning and Teaching at Federation University. One, I have to say, who's still with us is also the Director of Learning and Teaching. One who's with us, he has won a Vice Chancellor's Teaching Excellence Award, and one has won, as I pointed out, I think, an OLTC grant. So actually there's a lot of achievements in the people and alternative pathways, even amongst the people who haven't continued to the end of the program. But really, what I think has emerged is that people are showing their leadership in a variety of ways that suits their teaching context. Okay, so the next step, we're going to conduct a formal review of the program in February and March, and we will make recommendations for future programs such as this. Early indications, though, are, as I mentioned before, the time allocation is going to be a factor, and how mentoring meetings will be structured. It is such a challenging, our university is a challenging university with its campus structure. Publication, obviously, some people have already published once, twice on their programs, and some people are not at that stage yet. But dissemination of findings is not limited to publication. A lot of the participants have given presentations at international conferences, at national conferences, or in their own schools, which is part of what we really would like to see the education-focused staff doing, is leading other people's kind of improvement of learning and teaching, leading with that interest. Okay, So this is the speakers that we're going to have today, and that's the course. We're going to have a number of perspectives. Imelda's going to talk about the seminar workshops. We're going to hear about the mentoring program from both perspectives, the mentor and mentee. Changes in professional identity was an issue that's emerged, so someone's going to speak about that. Applying for ethics, that was a big hurdle, and we're going to have a speaker there. Theoretical approaches in education was a really new area for everybody, and we had a really good session on that. And then we're going to hear from 3 people about their actual research projects. So it's going to be a very fast gallop through 5 minutes each to give you really an overview of the program and maybe whether some of you may want to participate in the future. Okay, Imelda.
Hi, so I'm Imelda Williams, and I was a lucky participant in this inaugural group. And I'm here to give you an overview of what happened during the workshops that were run. The workshops were focused on scholarship of teaching and learning. SOTL is a teaching tool that strengthens education, enterprise and innovation at university level. On day 1, we had Darryl Evans, who started us off, and he gave much needed context around Monish's position on the education focus role. We were introduced to SOTL. SOTL was quite new for me, coming from a radiography background. So I was introduced to theoretical perspectives and also quite a number of very interesting educational databases. But we were challenged as participants to decide where we were within the SOTL development, whether we saw ourselves as novices, which I think quite a few of us felt we were novices. The majority actually, some felt more proficient, but I don't think anyone actually felt that they were experts. And we were asked to start thinking about something that really interested us in terms of research and the strengths that we could bring to that research project. And we had to develop a draft research proposal, and that was developed throughout the time of the workshops. But what was really a rich resource was what the participants shared with each other. We shared our skills with each other, and Joy put together a database which we shared on Google Drive, so that we knew that the participants had these specific skills and we could go and share our knowledge with each other. Day 2 started off by us identifying if there were any other skills we needed to complete a research project. We also had specialists that came, and we had someone from the library who made us aware of other sources of literature relevant to SOTL. And the participants identified that ethics was one key issue. And we had someone from UREC who came and talked about the ethics approval process and the requirements. Sorry about that. And we found it wasn't that daunting to apply for ethics after that discussion. And throughout the 2 days, we got feedback on our progress, and we had to look at our research proposal against SOTL standards, and that includes identifying aims for your project that would lead to significant outcomes. And at the end of the 2 days, we had to sit down and work out some timelines. As you know, with education-focused lecturers, there isn't a lot of time around, but yeah, and we were introduced to our mentors as well. Also using Google Hangouts to maintain our contact. Day 3, participants, we started off by presenting our presentation on our research. And what was really important about day 3 was the feedback throughout the day. Feedback from our mentors, but also feedback from our peers. But we also had some reflective feedback. Through the workshop, we gained a community of collegiality where education-focused academics could share their skills. As Joy mentioned, we had protected time out, but one of the benefits of the program was each of us actually received seed funding of $500, which we could use towards education-focused practices. And some of us used that to enhance teaching practice. I myself went to an international conference where I could present my findings. Thank you.
Sure. pop that one on. Hello. So my name is Meredith Hughes. I'm from the microbiology department in the Faculty of Medicine. And so I joined the HER program, as they've said, in 2013 because I'd done lots of research in my own discipline, but I'd never done education research. So when I became an EF academic, this was somewhere that we had questions that we wanted to answer, but I had no idea how to go about it. So I'm going to talk to you from the perspective of a participant about the mentoring program. The mentoring program is a bit of background. After the 2 days of the 2-day workshops, we were then introduced to 4 really excellent senior education-focused academics from the university, and we got to choose who we might like to have as our mentor. From there, we were put into groups of about 4 or 5 of the participants to one mentor. I actually actively chose someone outside of my discipline, and that was actually Judy Sheard, who will speak to you next. Mainly because I saw in her research things that I wanted to know about, and also during the course we were sort of coached to say, well, try and broaden your horizons, so I thought that would be a good fit for me. How the groups worked, we had 5 people in our group. We were across 3 different campuses and I think 4 different faculties within the university. So that actually was a strength of the group to me. I felt it was great to get exposure to Scott Wardley's engineering projects, Erica Brady in Business Echo. Barbie Panther was from Gippsland, and she's in science and technology and chemistry. And Priscilla and I were both from the same department in microbiology, and we had wanted to work together on our projects, so we had sort of chosen to be in the same group for that reason. But the group was being diverse was actually a strength because you got to hear and be exposed to a lot of different types of research, and also then hear Judy's feedback on those that can help you in your own or your future projects. The way the group worked, sadly the intention was that we would have a meeting a month. Apparently Joy had just told me 1 meeting a month face to face with all the mentees and our mentor. Across 3 campuses, multiple teaching loads, of course, it never actually eventuated with all of us in the one room at one time. However, Judy was very flexible, and I thank her for that, because she was able to set up smaller meetings with perhaps 3 of us and someone phoning into that, meetings with just one-on-one at times. And I think that even that amount of contact with each other, face-to-face, and with Judy's input was enough to start that sharing and to develop our sort of network of other research-focused academics and get really good feedback on our projects. Apart from those, the challenges of having the face-to-face meetings, Judy would often have an email chain going, just every now and then checking in for asking for a feedback, how the project's going, send me an update. Some people would reply to the whole group. Other people you may not hear from a while. Occasionally I was one of those too. But the thing about that, it was enough connection with the mentees, with each other and with Judy, that you would see great successes happening, and that would it really would drive you on. That isn't that terrific? Look at those results. Or people would share that, a successful ethics application and say, this one got through. Have a look. If you need any help, let me know. And Judy would chime in with different advice as well. And it also was very helpful in that peer support network to have those that perhaps were struggling, like myself, with getting ethics proposals up, and seeing that other people were finding similar challenges. So I think in terms of the mentoring program, I felt it was a very important part of the HER overall program, because it really allowed you to build on that learning from the 2-day workshop and give you that motivation and that sort of help you to persist, because it is very challenging to fit that in. And so personally, I think in measurable terms of what I got out of being a mentee was mainly the motivation to continue, the fact that I have started to establish my peer network across the university, and also personally, Priscilla and myself managed to get 2 projects through ethics. We've done our surveys, we're analysing the results, and we're even going to a conference this year in May, which if you'd asked me that 12 months ago, I would have thought that was unheard of. And it's actually a very exciting time, and we're actually starting to now build what our research projects are, and we're answering questions that our own academics are sort of perhaps wondering about, like why don't they come to lectures, and why do we have to use these technologies? And it's great now to be able to say, well, actually what we're doing is looking at this, and it's actually building into that education in our department. So I really do commend the mentoring part of the project, and thank Judy especially as my mentor, and our Joy for including that in it. Thank you very much.
Okay, is this on? Is it? Okay, my name's Judy Sheard. I'm from the Faculty of Information Technology, and I was a mentor in the program, as Meredith has explained already. I was very pleased when Joy invited me to be a mentor, because I've been doing education research for quite a few years, and I really love it, and I really love the type of research. I really love the variety, and I really love that you can often see immediate effects to what you're researching. So, as Meredith has already explained, our group had 5 academics from different disciplines, all education-focused academics. They were very involved and very passionate about their teaching. So when we met, it was discussion happened sort of straight away about lots of issues. The meetings were a problem. I really wanted to meet face-to-face. I know Joy introduced us to Google Hangouts, but I really like the face-to-face. We did meet face-to-face and have the phone hookups. Never got the group together all at once. Travel was an issue, but also scheduling. Now, the people in my group were doing lots of teaching. You know, their education focus had been given lots of teaching. Some of them, I think, were part-time. So it was never possible to meet all together. But we did the groups of 3, 2, one-on-one, etc. And we had the emails going too. It was when they got together, I could see that they'd made immediate connections between each other from the initial program, so that was really good. And they're really looking forward to meeting each other and talking about their work again. So the research projects, I initially thought, oh yes, we'll do this research project over the year, they'll have their own projects, and that will start, work, finish, and that will be it. But it took a long time to get started. I think, as Joy mentioned, that we really underestimated the leap from going from your own discipline-based research to education-focused research. You know, a whole new body of literature, different theories, models, frameworks, publishing venues, all of that takes a long time to take on board. But in our group, we made real progress in all of those areas, I felt. And the enthusiasm kept going, even though we weren't really making as much progress as I thought we probably thought would happen. So we had lots of long discussions. I found that in my group there was lots of... It became a bit of a problem, I think, teasing out the research questions, because they've got all their own intuition, and this was kind of getting in the way of sort of finding research questions that were feasible to do. But that was, you know, it was valuable for them to share perspectives and their experiences. So my reflections, I thought the project, even though looking back, if I had have set up some KPIs, we probably didn't meet these, but we met lots of others. And so I thought it was a really good experience. I really enjoyed the experience. And I think that the program, if it could, for just some ideas which I think Joy's already taken on board, that if the mentor-mentees could be at the same campus, that might be a good start, and perhaps be prepared to meet in one-to-one small groups. On the same campus, you can meet sort of for half an hour with no real impact on your workload. Perhaps it might be an idea. But okay, so thanks very much, Joy, for the program.
Apparently they're recording us, which is why we have to keep doing this. Oh. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Erica Brady. I'm in the Department of Marketing here at the Caulfield campus, and I'm actually speaking later on again this afternoon with my partner in crime, Peter Wagstaff, who makes me do crazy innovative things in teaching, and then I struggle to keep up with him and turn it into research. And I think that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to echo comments that people have said before, and things that are going to come up with what my colleagues are saying later on, is about this bit about skills and identity and higher education. So this is kind of a bit of a map of myself, and certainly probably reflects some of them. And pretend to my students that that's what I am. And if I wasn't here teaching people about marketing, I could be going out and doing marketing and that kind of stuff. So I've got a really strong identity about that and about being a marketer. The next one is probably being a lecturer, and hopefully we're not going to see too many of the rooms looking like that in terms of our classrooms moving forward. But that's the other thing, I'm a lecturer about marketing, and that's a really strong element of who I am. It's what I'm skilled in, it's what I've been doing for the last nearly 20 years that I don't want to think about, and that's a really big part of who I am, and it's something that I'm actually quite successful at. Maybe not all my students think that, but fortunately quite a few of them do. And so that's like a really big part of who I am, and it's what I'm known for doing well, and it's what, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit on the next slide, but it's actually the thing that I get rewarded for, not in an institutional sense, but in an immediate feedback sense. Okay, it's that was a good lecture, or I learned something, or a little light bulb goes on. And for those of us that know from research into it, whatever we do, we don't get that feedback in that same way. So moving out of that and backing off from that is actually a bit of a challenge. I've also got up there, I'm an innovator, because I don't just teach, I don't just do the same teaching that I've always done. I think all of us are here because we probably think of ourselves in that way. And so I'm challenging myself in terms of teaching and learning and assessment and curriculum design and all of these different things I do. And one of the things that was really interesting when we got together as a group is it was actually really hard for Joy and the presenters, I think, to begin with, to keep us on track, because we were all just so excited talking about what we did. We just wanted to talk about all the really cool things that we were doing in our classrooms. So you want us to talk about research? No, but listen to what I'm doing. And we go, oh, I want to do that, and how does it work? And all of that kind of stuff. And these things all take up time, and they take up space in terms of what we do, and that's all like really fun. I also have a role in educational leadership. I'm the director of teaching for my department. So part of my job is an enormous administrative burden that comes along with that. Joy over joy, after we just joined the program, the university decided to take a course architecture project. That was fun, wasn't it? Okay, so these things, but also in terms of my educational leadership role, it's my job within my department to encourage people to do a good job in teaching. I actually reckon that's the hardest part of my role, is to get people to do this stuff. So I also think about what I'm doing, and when I talk about the project this afternoon, one of my challenges is to go, well, that's great, I can do this with this really amazing individual who's really exciting and all that kind of stuff, but how do I get other people to do it? Then we come to the research bits. So first and foremost, I do have a PhD in my discipline area, and that was something else that was interesting about the group. Some of us had PhDs, so we knew the basics of research within our discipline area and the tools and techniques for that, but not everyone in the group had a PhD. So when we first started on the research part of it, some people had never been exposed to that. They'd never done a literature review before. They'd never used the library databases to search for information. Others of us were in the bucket where we'd done that within our own discipline, but had no idea where to start if we were researching into a completely new discipline area, different paradigms. The next speaker is going to talk about research methodology. So that was new to us. So I'm a discipline-based marketing researcher, and I remain one. I'm not going to let go of my discipline-based research. I'm still actually interested in that, not getting much of it done. So then the next thing was to develop as someone in terms of the scholarship of learning and teaching and doing research into that area. And then that's really interesting as well, because there's multiple parts to that, as there is with anything. But one of the messages that's come out really, really clearly, and probably my recommendation as the baby step, is that actually starting to evidence from a scholarly perspective the fabulous things that we're doing as lecturers and innovators. So even if it's not a publication that gets ranked somewhere, if we're actually starting to evidence, as we were talking about before, is, well, why is my classroom working differently to someone else's classroom? And starting to communicate that amongst our peers and our colleagues, that is part of this scholarship of learning and teaching. It doesn't have to be the publicational work, that's a nice outcome. But it's this bit about, lots of us have been rolling along for a long time doing really cool stuff, but it kind of lives with us, and we're not communicating it and spreading it around. So I don't know if this is an evolution or just evidence of multiple personality syndrome, because I think I'm these things every day, and that's the challenge, because really to get some of this stuff done you need to be just that person in that day, and that is certainly a challenge. Is it evolution or competition? So from an evolution perspective, one of the things that this has done really well is legitimise us within the university and what we're doing and the contributions we can make. And I think days like this are a really good example of that. Look, Joy's hurrying me up. I'll start to talk like I'm doing class, which is now why I record. Transferability of skills. We actually do have skills that we've developed in our discipline areas that can transfer into this, and it does help us in terms of career building. And I think really important for education-focused people, if you're going to go down the career and the promotion path, if you're not doing scholarship of learning and teaching, if you're not taking your fabulous classroom stuff somewhere, you're not going to get as far. Competition, time, which identity, what hat do I wear, what day, in order to get stuff done. Had to get out of my comfort zone. My comfort zone was doing this and talking to students and performing and being in front of people. My comfort zone is not reading a literature that I've never read before and trying to learn about new paradigms and all that kind of stuff. And as I've mentioned before, is moving away from that gratification, because it's a long journey. We've been doing it, as Judy said, you know, we haven't moved fast enough. So we're not getting the rewards. It's the thing you've got to do late at night when you finish prepping all your teaching and all that kind of stuff. Joy. Yes.
Thanks, mate.
Pleasure.
G'day, I'm Chris Thompson from the School of Chemistry, and I was just going to say a couple of things about about ethics. And you made this really important point that we have to evidence what we're doing. So there's all these practitioners around the place doing fantastic things in their classrooms, but it often doesn't move beyond that because you don't have appropriate evidence, and one of the barriers, of course, to collecting evidence about the things that you're doing is making sure that you've got ethics approval. So just before I say something about ethics, I can't say enough good things about this program. I was very much at the novice end of the spectrum. However, I did, I was a chemist. You were remarkable. I'm still a chemist, but I'm now education focused, and so my pathway from here is education research. This program has been a critical stepping stone to adopting that professional identity as well as remaining a chemist. So if there are any people out there embarking on this journey, think seriously about this program. Ethics was a new barrier for me. It was I kept hearing about ethics, ethics applications, either a pain in the arse or there's something putting together and it's so long, and then you submit it, and then it gets rejected, and all these sorts of things. All these myths, actually, I would say they're predominantly myths about applying for ethics. So as part of this program, in the opening couple of days, we had someone come and talk to us about ethics, how it works, what was the sort of technical bureaucratic side of it, but also talking a little bit about some of those pitfalls and how to avoid some of those pitfalls when we're applying for ethics. But most importantly, we had a full workshop later in the program, which was completely dedicated to applying for ethics and the concept of ethics, and it was run by Dr. Kirsten McLean, who was working with ethics at the time. It was absolutely fantastic. And there's a few points there. I'm not going to talk about ethics, but just how it, what was eye-opening for myself with respect to this program and this new identity that I was picking up. I've been doing these innovative things in the classroom, but I wanted to go that step further where I could evidence those things and possibly write publications, papers, perhaps booklets and those sorts of things. But I always thought about this stuff later. I'll do a student evaluation. You'll do this cool thing in the classroom, and it's like at the end, oh shit, I better put together some sort of stupid, multiple choice questionnaire to get some student perspectives. No, you don't do it at the end. You really need to be thinking in that space from the very beginning of the process. And so that was something that came through from the ethics workshops that we do. And actually going through the process of designing the ethics application, where you have to submit your explanatory statement, you have to submit your questionnaires well before you've done them, gets you starting to think about the timeline of the project. So applying for ethics is actually really useful for designing the project itself. And so it might be student evaluations or focus groups or student interviews or might be students, might be staff, might be research, whatever. And there are really important pitfalls that you have to think about when it comes to selecting or identifying the participants in your study. So there's a few pitfalls around that, so it's really good to pick up on those sorts of things. And then, of course, de-identifying the participants in your study. So I'm not going to go into that. I'm just here to talk about the benefits of what handing over now to my next.
Let's see here. So hello to everyone. I'm Unska Robinson. I'm with the Department of Rural and Indigenous Health from the School of Rural Health, and I live down in Gippsland, and I don't usually face a class at all because I teach in the virtual learning environment. So none of my classes are face-to-face. This is very new to me, so this is where I'm starting from. The session I'm talking about is theoretical framing. So all research is framed theoretically, but sometimes we don't think about it when we do our research. So sometimes we just think about, well, what type of data do I want to collect? But in actual fact, we probably should think about the theoretical framing for your research. Now, the project I did was about the course I teach, the unit I teach, and I teach research. I teach students by distance how to do research and about the research process. So what I wanted to explore was the student issues. So I thought, well, how do I find out about this? So do I look at constructivism? Do I look at how they have their lived experience? What's it like for them when they're doing their learning from a distance? Or do I look at measurement, and is there something I can measure to show how well they're doing? We all know they all get their marks at the end, and that's what they're striving for. So I decided to do a combination of two. From constructivism, I looked at the lived experience, and to do that, I looked at the students' words. So I did an ethics, and I got permission to do interviews, to use the discussion forum, to look at the qualitative comments from the evaluation. So this is about what does the student say. So what is the student saying and telling me throughout their unit and as they do their learning. And the other area I looked at was within measurement, and that comes from positivism, where we think if we measure something, then we know exactly what's going on. So I looked at just the numbers of students, but I also looked at analytics, because in Moodle we can look at how often the students look at each of the sessions that we put up on Moodle, and that can be very, very informative. So I drew on both those areas, the constructivism, the lived experience, and the positivism, the measurement, to find out what the students were experiencing as they did their research. It's been an interesting research project. I've been more applying it to my own unit than to writing up or presentations. I do hope to do a research paper, that's the next part, but that's where I'm at. And so for me, I do research, I have PhD students, but looking at the theoretical framing from an education research context has been most interesting. And I know quite a few of the other students thought it was interesting too. The session we attended was taken by Dr. Ali Clements, and she went through the process of looking at how we understand the words and the measures that we use when we're undertaking our research. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Ansky. Great. Okay, Scott.
How you going, everybody? My name's Scott Wordley, and I'm from the Department of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering over at Clayton. And my research project was about flipping the classroom in engineering. This is something that I did with one of my large second-year subjects in semester 1 at the start of last year. So for those who might not be familiar, flipping the classroom involves taking all my old boring lecture slides and converting them into jazzy, fun YouTube videos that all the students can watch online at their own convenience, do a quick Moodle quiz and then come into class and actively engage with the tutoring staff like myself and the lecturer, and who's myself, and do more active learning in that lecture time rather than just sitting there listening. So this was actually the first flipped classroom in the engineering faculty, so there was a lot of things we wanted to learn about. How does it work? How do we do it? How can we develop some best practices and help other people potentially do it in the future? Like most people here, we're all staring down the barrel of course architecture, and so this is a good opportunity to really make some big wholesale changes to any new subjects that we're making and any subjects that get changed in the mix-up. So we wanted a little bit of a pilot study, and this is what my work provided. So my research questions were, what are the student feedback, what's the student feedback and preferences for this example of a flipped classroom in engineering? And we also wanted to try and determine, did the learning outcomes for the student change between this offering and between previous offerings? So our research methods were firstly and primarily an anonymous student survey that we ran, featuring a mix of questions and also opportunities for students to provide open-ended answers and comment on things that they wanted to provide feedback on. We also looked at SETU scores for this unit historically and the current offering, and also some YouTube metrics. In terms of understanding the learning outcome changes, we also had a control exam questions that we compared the previous year and also the current offering to see if there are any changes in how students did in their performance. So what we found was strong student satisfaction, 93% for our implementation of this flipped classroom learning model, and very strong support for the use of this model in other subjects within engineering. The learning outcomes were either the same or statistically significant improvements in one of the questions. And the YouTube and Moodle analytics provided some really interesting insights into when the students were consuming the recorded information before they came into class, and also told us a lot about how the quizzes that we ran in Moodle motivated students to actually consume that material. We had a sample where we didn't have a quiz, and viewing rates dropped off significantly. And the headline result was the SETU improved really markedly between these two offerings. So in terms of impact and dissemination, we've been working on 3 completely new flipped classroom subjects, which are going to start up in a couple of weeks' time, going to first year and 500 students each. So that's been really good fun, and we've been able to use some of our lessons learned in the development of those. We'll be publishing these results as well at A²E², and looking at collaborative research with other people from the HER program, and also potentially helping out with a seed module in the future to teach these skills. Thanks, guys.
Right, I've got my notes here, so I stick to time and don't start waffling on, which I tend to do. Okay, so just to put into context the project that me and Meredith Hughes did this last semester. So we both concentrated on 2 research projects. I'm going to talk to you about one of those, which is the use of social media in one of our third-year units. So to put that into context, we have a third-year unit that we teach in the microbiology department called bacterial pathogenesis. And it's taught in small tutorial groups where there's 8 to 10 students and 2 tutors. And within that group of students, they all write a chapter that goes towards a book which is on bacterial pathogens. And in the past, what we've, they've tried to use Moodle groups, they've tried to use like the Google Docs and all that sort of thing, but increasingly the students have asked, can we use Facebook, can we set up groups on Facebook? And so what we wanted to do in this study is really have a look at the use of Facebook in that unit to see, get evidence as to why the students liked that unit. Not all groups across, there were 7 tutorial groups across that unit, and not all of the groups use Facebook. So we wanted to work out, well, why weren't some groups using Facebook, what were the reasons behind that, and then we also wanted to know about tutor engagement, because one of the key things that we're finding is that the students are all up to using Facebook and all these sorts of things, but the tutors aren't necessarily wanting to use Facebook as that medium. So What we did is we went into the different tutorial groups and we surveyed, asking a mix of both quantitative and qualitative questions, both the tutors and students, asking them their perspectives on Facebook, perhaps why they didn't use it, and also the tutors as well. And then we were also actually at the time asked permission to see if we could look at the content of some of the Facebook pages that the students and the tutors, or just the students on their own set up. Interestingly, there was really only one group out of the 7 that actually let us actually look at the data. So, but which was interesting because some of the tutors were involved in those groups as well. But it's all about levels of comfort, and that's what the human ethics is for. Okay, and so the indicative finding and the results of that study to date. Well, what they showed the students, love using Facebook. They love it for collaboration. They love, getting real-time feedback. So whenever anyone goes on there, they're all getting notifications to go, oh, someone's written this on the Facebook page, and they can go in and have a look at that, and they can have, a real-time sort of chat with each other about. So in the book, what they have to decide on is the whole design, the front covers, how the bios, all the nice sort of stuff, and they like being able to have those sort of real-time chats. Interestingly enough, the tutors are still not 100% comfortable in that space. And what you will find is interesting is that some of our older academics in the 60 plus were quite happy to run and be part of the tutorial group. It was our tutors who were in about the 25 to 30 age group who actually did not feel comfortable acting in, being part of a Facebook group. And so what we're hoping to go from here is that we're actually running a session which will be on the use of social engagement to, social media to enhance student engagement at a conference in the USA later in the year. We're hoping to sort of put this together for a publication. But one of the things and the reason why we did this is we want to set up certain guidelines and maybe a bit more explanation for educators, not only just in our department, but sort of across our faculty in the school about how to use social media, how you can interact with students, and sort of show sort of the positives behind some of the using that as a medium to be able to get your students to engage and collaborate. And I think the last thing I wanted to say as a reflection is, this program, I can't, it's available in the future. You should sign up and you should do it because, I tried an education paper just after I did my graduate certificate of higher education, and it was the reverse reviews I've ever had as a researcher. It really, and doing this program really taught me, it allowed me the space and time to really think about what I was doing. You learned more of what was involved. The human ethics really makes you concentrate on what it is and what the question is. And having the mentor program, because we used to go to Judy, and I'd be saying all this stuff, and she's like, well, what are you really asking? I was doing focus groups and surveys and all this sort of stuff, so it really helped. All right, and thank you to Joy.
Is that right? Yep. Okay, yes, Lisa Knightbridge. Before I start, thank you to Yvonne, my mentor, and to Imelda, one of my peers, for their support. My research is around reflective practice in occupational therapy, not just as a way to facilitate learning, but as an actual competency, a learning outcome, a skill that we're aiming for. I work in the Department of Occupational Therapy. I'm a senior lecturer, education focused. My main role is a fourth year coordinator, and I coordinate a participatory community practice, which is a project style fieldwork the students do over 2 semesters. It's a capstone project. So in both of those roles, professional competencies are very important. So I'm interested in self-directed learning, work integrated learning, experiential learning. So following a curriculum alignment process, learning outcomes is the first place that you need to start so that your assessments and your methods are all aligned. But defining learning outcomes is really important. And in professional practice degrees, medicine, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, our professional competencies define those in many ways. For my profession, our World Federation sets those down, and they're modified or interpreted locally. In Australia, reflective practice is an important component of 5 out of the 6 competency areas. If you really read it, you can see that it's quite an important competency. And we've also just become part of the registration process. So with continuing professional development, reflective practice is one of the 2 learning activities that they'll accept as continuing professional practice. So it was very important. So as a first step, I did literature search, reflective practice in occupational therapy. I can't report on those now, I don't have time, but I did present them at a conference last year, and I'll be writing up a paper. But it was very clear, and this led to the next stage of the research, so it's sort of a 4-part research where, you know, despite its acceptance as being really important, there's very little reflective practice in the literature. It hasn't been studied, it's not very well defined, and it's very broad. There is no sort of one defined thing to inform me as a teacher in how I'm meant to be teaching the students. So that led to the purpose of this part of the 4-stage thing was to somehow work out and define what is reflective practice in occupational therapy. These were some of the guiding questions. So my methodology, I'll put the whole thing up, was to design a survey because there wasn't none out there for me to use, but I looked at the literature and what previous other professions had done. Design a survey. My population were all OTs practising in Australia, registered. So I, with a Qualtrics survey, and I approached OTs through the e-bulletin that went out to all occupational therapists over 4 months. And I was lucky enough to get 104 responses, which was quite good. The sorts of things I was looking at was demographics, but also models of reflective practice, attitudes, barriers to, and what their purposes were, just to get a really broad overview. Again, I can't go into too much detail about the findings, but just some initial exploratory findings have been really important. Just one of the things that came out in the literature and in the survey was that reflective journaling was one of the least used methods, and in fact I couldn't see it out of the 33 methods in the literature. I couldn't see reflective journaling as one of the things that was talked about, but that's the main method that we teach, and I would assume that's what we're finding across other professions as well. Barriers to reflective practice were similar to what we find when looking at other professions, which is time demands and workplace culture, but the second highest was around their understanding and the skills that they have to do that. So I thought that was quite important. And other things too, like the models that they use were not the ones that were being talked about in the literature. The next step is I used my $500 to go to the structural equation modelling workshop at University of Melbourne last week, so hopefully I can do some quantitative analysis and look at do some path analysis, looking at workplace setting and how that might impact, you know, how the culture of the workplace might impact on attitudes and barriers and actual engagement in reflective practice. And then long term, I'd like to interview therapists more in depth and get a much more idea of what is happening out there, and long term to look at interprofessional practice and compare. Is that my 5 minutes?
Very good. Okay, we've got 5 minutes for questions, so I'd like to ask all participants to come and sit down so that we can answer any questions that you might have. Whether you're, one of the things that one of the mentors mentioned to me at the very start too, she said why you were switching to education focus, and that was a big part of the purpose. I was interested in the question because I understand that there were some DNR people who might like to shift in that direction and who might like the opportunity to participate. So these questions are for anyone who might be, you know, interested in doing it, whether you're education
units or just some of them?
The new 3 first-year subjects, yes, they're all being flipped. After doing this in first semester, I had the opportunity to consider whether I flipped my second semester class, and I decided not to. I went down to kind of 1 lecture a week, but we have a lot of learning materials that we've developed that are doing the computer lab. I just decided that they need to be in the computer lab to do this stuff rather than actually sitting around with a pencil and paper. So I don't think flipped is necessarily the answer for everything or everybody, and it's something we're just going to have to work out as we go on.
And how did you learn?
Just a minute. I didn't take a question. It's about the program. Yes.
It's about the program. As part of this program, did the panel that's assembled here have a period where you were trying to establish a collective attitude towards publishing the research that you guys were going to embark on at that time, or maybe at some point you came together back? So what has been the attitude towards publishing this research? Where will it go?
Who wants to answer that?
I think from day one, the first workshop we had, that we were almost forced to start thinking around research and to develop a draft research proposal. So the intent was to try and publish, and I think for all of us here, that is what we are aiming for that outcome. So.
But where? Like in your own disciplines? Because I've heard a few of your own disciplines.
I think to answer that, I think from the course, originally perhaps you might think, well, I'm a microbiologist, that's what I am. I've published in my discipline. So straight away when you hear education research, you think I'm going to publish my education research. But I think the course really showed you that you don't have to publish within your discipline. Say, Priscilla and I, we might try for like the conference we're going to is a microbiology educators conference, but looking at say a tool like flipped classrooms or social media, it's across all disciplines. So there are journals for that, and the course really helped us sort of broaden that horizon and really advocated that, which is one of the reasons I chose Judy from the head of the IT as my mentor. Nothing to do with science or medicine, because I wanted to be exposed to those different types of journals. So I think that's definitely a focus, and I guess that's a goal, because the more broader the journal, it's often a higher impact factor too. And I guess we're used to publishing in good journals, and you want to maintain that in your education research.
And when we got the practice, very similar, sort of shifted from national therapy to lab practice, and that's much broader and interdisciplinary because the journals change and presentations.
Another question here.
Just a quick one, Joy. How many of the 20 participants didn't have a PhD when they commenced?
It's a really good question.
Because I remember, sorry, the lady behind the lectern said that someone in your group didn't have one, and was really
Not
everyone.
Yeah, there wasn't. No, there wasn't very many, but there might have been 2 or 3.
I'm one of those who have it and I'm off my head. And I'm like, at the same time, and this program helped, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, another question.
I just want to ask a social media speaker, sorry I didn't catch your name.
Priscilla.
You mentioned that you've done the graduate diploma in education research?
It was great. I don't know, I've got another name now. It's called the Graduate Certificate in Higher Education when I first started.
Yeah, so you were taught some research skills there?
So we went off, and me and another couple of academics from my department, one of the things was do a research project as part of the semester, but then they didn't teach us really as part of that at the time. Like, so we didn't apply for ethics at the time. You know what I mean? It was.
So you thought this program better than that diploma?
At that stage, I think that program has gone through several iterations, and it's a bit different now than what it was when I probably did it, because I would have done that probably about 8 years ago now. So I think it was a bit different there. We just started a research project, and we were given some guidance, but this helped a lot. Yeah.
Can I add, I did take as well, certainly 2 years ago, that research one, that this program takes your research to the next level of doing much more. The one in the CAP was more about development proposals, this one was more about doing it, and a lot of really different.
And it's technical theory, so we'll put it here. I mean, have to line it up
when I was at the marketing. I know. Sorry.
Very much, yeah. Most of my role is teaching. For my internal KPI back in Malaysia, I'm 55% teaching.
I reckon they actually think it would be the way we run the system. So I think we'll have to do something in relation. But let's just, I'm actually very, thank you for that.
Well done, Joy. That was a good session. That worked really well.
How are you?
Hello. Good. Yeah. So are we running and totally agree with Kerry and disagreement, but to get back to April not teaching workshop how to I guess practice. So he's looking at
That's right, yeah, and I would rally against that too much. I think it's really important. And I think that a lot of my papers still going to end up in journals like the Journal of Chemical Education, which is predominantly written by chemists. So actually that way of writing is going to be really well received. But if I did try and submit to say, I don't know, the learning and assessment journal, you would have to look at that, and you might even get a joy or something like that to look over it. Should answer yes, I think. Yeah. And you can't learn it overnight. This is really important. You've actually probably got to go through your papers, maybe your rejections before whatever process to really refine that background knowledge. No, I'm going to go move my car because I'm just parked in a 2 hour spot across the road. So.
And then your indicators, and then how to actually think about what you teach and how you then actually the same sort of context that you do as well, Chris is the one. This is Chris's thinking. Yeah.
So just be in touch with Darren, you've got a timetable and so forth. Sorry to interrupt, but I might just have to